Jim Corpin. It's a pleasure to be in front of you here today. This is my cousin Max. We're co-chairs. We have another young lady, Carrie Martin, who is not with us this morning. She's feeling under the weather. She is instrumental in bringing us together this morning. This is something that we got together 9 years ago to honor the gentleman that lived on these grounds and what he did for African Americans and all Americans to make a better life here. I walked around at 6 o'clock this morning and just was overwhelmed at what a great life I've been able to have, and what great friends and jobs and education that I've had in this area. And it's, a lot of this is because somebody did a random act of kindness. And I always, when you hear that, this random act of kindness, I realized it wasn't random at all. He had a purpose. And, he educated everyone that we were all important and equal and wanted a better life here in the United States, and especially in a small town like this. So I would love to have you just take a second, moment of silence for the people who have attended our first 8 Emancipation Days that aren't with us here today. Some of them aren't with us because they are no longer on this earth. Some of them aren't here because they haven't been able to make it here. And I know they're here in our hearts and minds. So if you just take a second to do what you will with a moment of silence. Thank you so much. And Max Smith.
Good morning. I once heard from a lady who was into developmental issues that there's no substitute for good protoplasm. I think my cousins and I'm fond of being a part of this family and coming from this Peterboro soil and proud of the protoplasm they gave me. But, Garrett Smith and those abolitionists built a foundation for our nation. They had an impact that changed the course of America. Set it on a still a less than perfect course, but set it moving forward, more correctly addressing those tenets that they put in that Declaration and in that Constitution. If you ever hear me talk, you hear me say it over and over again because they're my favorite words. We are all here today really for one purpose, that America must live up to the true meaning of its creed, that all men are created equal and endowed with inalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Don't forget the women.
And women. I say that I don't say that to exclude women in any way. And I know, it's like the use of the term colored and Negro then. You use them because that's what they used. But in no way was that intended to be sexist. And so I embrace this, and I embrace coming back here because it's my heritage, but more importantly because I want to do whatever I can in my small way to make sure that we stay on that path moving forward, which helps America to continue to pursue that dream that all men will be created equal and endowed with inalienable rights. Those who came before us, Garrett, I think, obviously one of the premier ones among them, was willing to put his life, his money, his passion behind that cause. And so I would urge each of you here today, you come by your presence and say, I'm willing to do that as well, to what degree that you might. When we started these, I see some who have never been here before. Dorothy and Norm, who are over there, stand up, Dorothy and Norm. Stand up. All right, wave. I mentioned how the civil rights leaders of the 60s, in my mind, stood on the shoulders of Frederick Douglass and all of those, Garrett Smith and all of those great abolitionists many of whom are enshrined in the National Abolition Hall of Fame here in this community, I, and I think others like me, stand on the shoulders of these good people and others like them who showed us the way, and they are my inspiration. What led me into this more fully was, at one point, somewhere in our relationship, Dorothy sent me these newspaper articles, and I can still see them in my mind's eye. One from Utica, one from the Oswego Palladium Times, one from the Rome Sentinel, and they were describing an event that took place in Peterboro, and the articles are from one from 1924, and they moved up to about 1934, where hundreds of black people from all over the country, and the last one that I read that continues to be my inspiration this day, 1934, over 2,000 people came to Peterboro to celebrate Emancipation Days. And I had this seed in my head that one day this is too important, we must do this again. So when the opportunity arose, I started talking to my cousin and said, we have to do this. We have to continue. And we've tried to copy what they did. They gathered as we're gathered today. They had a picture, a group picture, and we have several of those group pictures. They're two of my most prized possessions. One was out on the green here, 1923, and my grandparents are holding my Aunt Lenore. My grandmother's holding my Aunt Lenore in her arms, and there's about 15, 20 people gathered there. The other from 1934 is in front of the Mansion House, and there's a copy of it up in the museum. And my dad is holding the corner of this huge flag, and I've got a copy of that in the house. So we've tried to copy what they did. They gathered like this, they took a group photo, and then they processed to the cemetery to lay a wreath at the grave of Garrett Smith. We've added another wrinkle because we learned that there are former slaves lying in that cemetery who had not been marked. And through the beneficence of people who support this concept and what we're doing here, we've been able to raise money over the years to buy gravestones for 6 former slaves. The last 2 years we kind of got busy and didn't get after it, so this year we're doing our final 2 stones. If you come to the cemetery with us, you'll see those stones laying there, and it's always a moving thing for me to see those. You don't know when they were born in most cases, but you know when they died, because they died in Peterboro, and they died free. Now, I'm an emotional guy. I can't tell you that without getting teary. But you'll see those dates, and to know that after all this time, we're remembering them, and they'll always be remembered now because their stones are there. It makes me proud of what we're doing here. So we're going to do that. The other thing they did, they had bands playing. We may get there yet. Fireworks displays, dancing, 3-legged races, ball games. They spent the rest of the day in friendship and fellowship, enjoying their camaraderie, and that they come together in Peterboro to celebrate human dignity and human rights. So I would urge all of you to do that as well. Another thing that we've added was these abolitionists, I've heard Norm say many times they had a byword, and it was agitate. Agitate, agitate, agitate. In Peterboro, it was abolition indoors, abolition outdoors, abolition everywhere, abolition all the time. So for us, I think we take that to let's educate. Let's talk about the issues of the day, regardless of what your politics are. Let's talk about those issues, and let's have meaningful dialogue about who we are as a community and who we are as Americans. So to this afternoon, we're very pleased and proud to have Jake Colin, who's one of the local residents who went to the Equal Justice Initiative in Montgomery, Alabama earlier this year. And this afternoon, he's going to tell us about his experiences there and what he learned and why that initiative is taking place. The initiative is basically about getting America to come to grips with the fact that for over 100 years, there was an organized effort to terrorize African Americans. And those things culminated in lynchings. And those lynchings took place all across this country, but largely in the South. Where those lynchings took place are now being commemorated. Soil is being taken from the ground where those lynchings took place and put in a museum by a gravestone which lists the names of those we know who were hung. Always without trial, almost always without justification and without cause. And it was clearly an effort to keep black people enslaved, even though the Emancipation Proclamation had already happened. But if you were afraid for your life all the time, it made an impact on what you chose to do and how you chose to do it. So that's our afternoon program, and we hope that you'll come back and participate in that. It'll take place at 2 o'clock here in the barn.
Yeah, I can do that. The two stones that have been put up in our cemetery, we've had help from a local person, and I just want to give you some information so we don't spend a lot of time up there. We will spend enough time commemorating them at the cemetery. We have Thomas I. Potter, age 27 years old. Mr. Potter was once a slave, was purchased by Mr. Goodsell from Clinton. He proved to be a friend rather than a master. He sent him to school and prepared him for usefulness. On his deathbed, he spoke affectionately of Mr. Goodsell, and Mr. Potter was a member of the Manual Labor School here in Peterboro. He had more than common gifts as a writer and a speaker. Max has one of the letters that he wrote. He will do some quotes and some speaking out from that letter. His letter was to the Cazenovia Anti-Slave State Convention, and the best fact in his history is that he loved his Savior. A large company of his friends attended his funeral. Mr. Schofield preached an appropriate and warm-hearted send-off at his funeral. Our second is Maria Howard. She passed away in Peterboro February 17th, suddenly at the residence of Reverend William Bridge. Maria Howard was believed to be 50 years old. Sometimes these records were a little sketchy. She was one of 37 slaves owned by Elias Cresswell of New Orleans. They were liberated through the kindness of the Honorable Garrett Smith. She was one of the last of the 17 who came to Peterboro. We will certainly spend some time up there honoring these two people. As we do every year, we will take our wreaths up that have been put together by Carrie's mother this year. Carrie was not able to do the wreaths, but her mother did a fantastic job. And besides that, back to Max.
So without much further ado, we'll form up and we'll have our picture taken. I do want to recruit 4 able-bodied individuals to carry the wreaths for us to the cemetery. So you can see me, just after the picture if you wish to volunteer in that capacity. The other thing I was thinking, if anyone is not going to walk to the cemetery, we have some folks with us of advanced age who might want to go be a part of that, but will need a ride. So if there's someone who could drive and take a couple of our seniors to the cemetery, that would be great. How's your vehicle, Sid? Nothing like volunteer family.
Mention when we get to the cemetery, we're
Okay, another thing while we're here. The 2 stones that we are commemorating initially when we arrived, those of the former slaves, are immediately to the right as you turn into the cemetery. So as we gather, those on foot will gather there, but if you're driving, just pull in a little bit and you'll see, just as you enter the first roadway, they're right to the right. And so that's where we'll gather.
So you can pull off the roadway to your left.
Yes. Okay? All right. Yes, Gar. Point to something like that. Okay, yeah, see?
And the event at 2 o'clock?
I did the event. Dar wants me to let you know that we have a mercantile store, which is in that building, and it is open today, and there are books about Peterboro, a number of them written by the good Dr. Dan, and others. There are wonderful t-shirts like this that you can proudly wear back at your homes and whatnot, which all bring some focus and attention to Peterboro. So take the time to go in and look at the mercantile. This is a place we affectionately refer to as the Lodge. I can, for some reason, never get that through my head. I call it everything but the Lodge. But anyway, that's the Lodge, and there's a nice little store in there. There are also there's little earrings that have been made, you know, and there's all kinds of stuff in there that might be of interest to you. So stop in and see the Lodge if you'd like. Okay, picture? Our
picture is going to be in front of the barn. If we can take 10 of the nicer chairs here and line them up, obviously, you know, taller in the back, shorter in the front.
Seniors in the chairs.
Okay, is everybody ready?
Ready. Honey.
And we'll shoot some.
Honey.
Okay, here we go. There we go. That's good. And one more. Here we go. Everybody smile. I can see everybody. That's good.